Have you ever wondered what it actually takes to get banned for life from a commercial establishment? It requires a special breed of absolute delusion. We compiled the most unhinged, deeply embarrassing, and flat-out ridiculous reasons security had to drag grown adults out of stores. The sheer audacity on display here belongs in a psychological textbook. 1. There is regular audacity, and then there is returning a rented tuxedo covered in wedding cake audacity. One guy actually marched back into a formal wear shop with a luxury suit that looked like it barely survived a frat party in a swamp. His pants featured massive grass stains on both knees, and the jacket reeked of cheap champagne. His defense? He kept a totally straight face and argued with the exhausted manager for 20 minutes that the garment was clearly defective. He demanded a full cash refund because the thin fabric simply could not handle his eventful evening. Sir, you rented a tuxedo, not a suit of armor for a medieval jousting tournament. 2. If you think the Apple Store Genius Bar can fix anything, wait until you hear about the guy with the catastrophic breakfast emergency. A deeply serious gentleman was escorted out of that sterile tech wonderland after slamming a rusty, crumb-filled kitchen toaster onto the sleek wooden counter. He demanded the staff fix his appliance immediately. When told they only repair modern computers, he delivered a masterclass in flawless, completely unhinged logic. He stated that the toaster is a machine, he is not a genius, and therefore, they were legally obligated to solve his charred bagel dilemma. You really have to admire that level of absolute delusion. 3. Nostalgia is a powerful drug, but it holds absolutely zero market value at Guitar Center. A local guy casually strolled into the music shop and attempted to trade in the crusty, spit-filled plastic recorder he had played back in the 3rd grade. What did he expect in exchange for this national treasure? A brand new, top-of-the-line Gibson electric guitar. He looked the cashier dead in the eye and claimed his piece of cheap molded plastic was a vintage instrument carrying massive sentimental value. Amazingly, the staff did not agree that a $3 toy used to butcher hot cross buns was an even swap for a $3,000 rock masterpiece. 4. Home improvement stores are basically giant playgrounds for bored adults, but some people take the thrill rides way too seriously. 2 grown men were permanently banned from their local hardware center after deciding to film a bootleg episode of Jackass right in the plumbing aisle. Their brilliant stunt involved one guy sitting cross-legged inside a wobbly shopping cart while his buddy propelled him at high speeds using a commercial-grade gas leaf blower. Their dreams of internet glory violently crashed into reality when the store manager stepped in. He calmly informed them that corporate liability insurance unfortunately does not cover profound, undocumented stupidity. 5. Movie theater seating has gotten pretty luxurious lately, but apparently premium stadium loungers just are not good enough for some absolute divas. A man was swiftly ejected from a cinema after sneaking in his own full-sized living room recliner. How he managed to manually drag a massive piece of heavy upholstered furniture all the way down to the front row remains a beautiful, baffling mystery. But the absolute peak of this story? He flagged down a teenage usher and genuinely asked where the nearest wall outlet was so he could plug in the heated massage feature during the previews. The sheer disrespect for public etiquette is honestly staggering. 6. Healthcare in America is famously confusing, but this next situation completely redefines the concept of a primary care physician. A woman bypassed her local auto mechanic and drove straight to a pharmacy counter. She did not have a prescription for antibiotics or a rash that needed looking at. Instead, she asked the highly trained pharmacist to step outside into the parking lot and diagnose a bizarre rattling and coughing sound coming from her engine. The medical professional was left absolutely speechless as the woman stood there, genuinely perplexed that a doctor of pharmacy could not simply prescribe a heavy-duty cough syrup to cure her desperately sick Dodge minivan. 7. The fresh seafood department is usually a pretty chill place, unless you happen to be actively looking for a brutal street fight. A man was forcibly removed from a supermarket for aggressively trying to intimidate the live lobsters swimming in the display tank. He stood there furiously tapping on the glass, pointing his fingers and yelling, "You think you are so tough in there?" The guy was practically shadowboxing a bottom-feeding crustacean. Store security had to step in and physically drag him toward the exit before he could successfully challenge a 2-pound underwater insect to a parking lot brawl over a perceived insult. 8. Everyone fancies themselves a high-end food critic these days, thanks to the internet. But one aspiring Gordon Ramsay took his culinary journey to a dark, deeply disturbing place. This guy was permanently banned from a pet supply store for conducting a highly public, entirely serious taste test of the premium dry cat food. Employees caught him chewing on salmon-flavored kibble while jotting down detailed reviews in a tiny leather notebook. He was loudly lecturing horrified bystanders about the complex, nutty undertones and the overwhelmingly disappointing finish of the indoor feline diet. Sir, your palate might be refined, but your dining choices are a public health hazard. 9. If you have ever felt completely cheated by the universe, you might relate to the pure, unadulterated delusion of this convenience store patron. A guy marched up to a corner store counter and aggressively demanded a full cash refund on a scratched-off, completely worthless lottery ticket. His argument was a masterclass in terrible legal theory. He confidently explained that the cardboard product was clearly defective because it completely failed to perform its heavily advertised function of making him a sudden millionaire. Surprisingly enough, the exhausted night shift clerk, along with the entire state gaming commission, completely disagreed with his interpretation of how gambling actually works. 10. Applying fast food soda logic to solid meals is a bold economic strategy that will absolutely get you thrown out on the street. A customer at a Mexican grill devoured an entire massive burrito bowl, scraped the cardboard clean, and then marched right back into the line. When he reached the register, he fiercely demanded a free refill on his lunch. He passionately argued that since the restaurant offers unlimited refills on fountain sodas, that exact same principle should automatically cover $17 worth of chicken, rice, and extra guacamole. The manager quickly decided his massive appetite was no longer welcome on the premises. 11. Creating your own alternate economy at the grocery store checkout is generally frowned upon by local law enforcement. One financial genius loaded up a heavy cart with expensive snacks and confidently tried to settle his bill using a massive stack of brightly colored Monopoly money. When the cashier refused the pastel orange and yellow paper, the man started a heated debate, insisting it was totally legal tender because the cardboard box clearly stated it came from a bank. The store manager then had the deeply depressing task of explaining the nuanced economic differences between Parker Brothers board games and the United States Treasury. 12. The spring holidays are stressful, but taking your seasonal rage out on a minimum wage teenager in a giant costume crosses a very specific, highly illegal line. A fully grown adult man was banned from a local shopping mall after initiating a violent physical altercation with the hired Easter Bunny. What sparked this brutal confrontation? The guy claimed the oversized mammal had purposely shorted him on the number of cheap foil-wrapped chocolate eggs in his complimentary basket. Mall security arrived to find a 40-year-old man aggressively trying to place a 6-foot-tall pastel rabbit into a professional wrestling headlock right next to the food court. 13. Local arts and crafts stores are supposed to foster boundless creativity, but they generally draw the line at casual, crayon-based financial fraud. An aspiring local artist was escorted out of a retail hobby shop after attempting to purchase an entire basket full of glitter and plastic googly eyes using a completely fabricated coupon. And by fabricated, I mean they had literally drawn a fake barcode on a napkin using a dull red wax crayon. When the cashier rejected the fake voucher, the customer boldly argued that their drawing was a legitimate work of modern art and therefore held exact monetary value. The cash register did not agree with this aesthetic theory. 14. Large discount superstores are basically the Wild West of retail, a place where standard societal norms simply evaporate the moment you walk through the sliding glass doors. One woman took this freedom to the absolute limit by dragging an inflatable plastic kiddie pool right into the middle of the grocery section. She proceeded to unscrew dozens of 2-liter bottles of cheap generic soda and dump them directly into the basin. When an utterly bewildered manager intervened, she calmly explained she was setting up a private carbonated day spa to rejuvenate her skin. Security managed to drag her away right before she started dumping in the explosive pop rocks. 15. Teenagers have an incredible, almost magical knack for turning billions of dollars of commercial real estate into their own personal, incredibly annoying amusement park. A pack of bored youths was permanently ejected from a massive shopping center for inventing a dangerous game they called ghost riding the glass elevator. They would push all the buttons, send the empty see-through box shooting up toward the skylights, and then desperately sprint up the adjacent escalators to try and beat it to the top floor. This caused absolute mass confusion, shutting down the mechanical lifts and infuriating literally every single senior citizen who actually needed to reach the food court. 16. Personal hygiene is highly subjective, but trying to prove your body odor to retail employees is a fast track to a lifetime ban. A very sweaty man strolled up to a pharmacy checkout counter, clutching a half-empty stick of discount deodorant. He aggressively demanded his money back because the chemical product was fundamentally defective. To prove his ironclad legal case, he lifted his bare arm high into the fluorescent lighting and commanded the horrified teenage cashier to get a good whiff of his pit to verify the catastrophic failure. The terrified kid hit the panic button, and the manager practically threw the guy into the street. 17. Corporate marketing slogans are meant to be catchy branding tools, not strict literal instructions for how to consume cheap, late-night fast food. One absolute lunatic was booted from a taco franchise for taking their old "think outside the bun" campaign way too seriously. He walked up to the counter, ordered a dozen crunchy beef tacos, and then violently slammed his own sweaty, beat-up sneaker onto the plastic tray. He demanded the kitchen staff dump the seasoned meat and lettuce directly into his footwear, claiming he was simply embracing the company's bold culinary philosophy. The only thing he ended up embracing was the concrete sidewalk outside. 18. Some retirees take up relaxing hobbies like gardening or golf, while others decide to enforce brutal martial law in the canned goods section. An elderly gentleman was permanently relieved of his self-appointed duties at a local supermarket after he decided to become the official aisle traffic director. This guy came fully prepared. He was wearing a neon-reflective highway vest, blowing a loud brass referee whistle, and aggressively signaling heavy shopping carts to halt at four-way intersections near the baking supplies. Instead of improving the flow of commerce, his authoritarian hand gestures created a massive, incredibly hostile gridlock of angry shoppers holding melting frozen pizzas. 19. The grocery store during the holiday rush is already a terrifying war zone, but some people treat the linoleum floors like a brand new winter sports complex. A group of reckless buddies was unceremoniously thrown out of the meat department for inventing a highly destructive new athletic game they called frozen turkey bowling. Their chosen arena was the main middle aisle. They were using a heavy metal shopping cart as the massive bowling ball and violently hurling it toward a carefully stacked pyramid of rock-hard frozen poultry. Management did not appreciate this spontaneous sporting event, mostly because the retail damage deposit on severely bruised birds is surprisingly high. 20. We all wish the concept of love could pay our utility bills, but the modern banking system remains frustratingly cold and heartless. A man attempted to settle a massive $150 grocery tab by aggressively slamming down a fanned-out stack of empty, heavily expired Thanksgiving greeting cards covered in cheap glitter. When the cashier stared in blank confusion, the guy argued that because the cards said "with love" on the inside, they were considered tender, and therefore completely legal tender. He then started yelling, demanding the teenager immediately run the love balance. Shockingly, the store's accounting department did not have a love ledger on file. 21. High-end spa treatments are getting ridiculously expensive, but sourcing your personal grooming routines from a chain pet supply store is a deeply unhinged money-saving hack. A customer secured a lifetime ban after employees discovered him sitting on a small wooden stool, casually soaking his bare, heavily calloused feet inside a giant tropical aquarium display. He was entirely unbothered, happily explaining that the tiny, expensive algae-eating fish were currently providing an exquisite complimentary pedicure. He actually had the sheer nerve to brag that his heels had never felt so smooth and exfoliated right before the manager threatened to call the police on his aquatic foot bath. 22. Upscale department stores absolutely pride themselves on premium customer service, but they usually draw a very hard line at public plastic indecency. A furious woman was escorted out of a luxury boutique because she absolutely insisted on purchasing the exact silk blouse that was currently strapped to a rigid fiberglass mannequin. When a polite employee pointed out an entire rack of the completely identical shirts right behind her, she scoffed, loudly claiming the rack energy just would not be the same. She then physically attacked the display, attempting to rip the arms off the heavy dummy to undress it herself. Retail workers truly do not get paid enough for this madness. 23. Artificial intelligence is slowly taking over the world, but it is also completely destroying the fragile egos of easily angered middle-aged shoppers. A grown adult man was forcibly removed from a massive retail store after getting into a highly aggressive, incredibly heated screaming match with a self-checkout kiosk. Bystanders watched in sheer, paralyzed horror as the automated robot voice politely announced an unexpected item in the bagging area. The man lost his absolute mind, aggressively pointing his finger at the glowing screen and roaring, "Do not take that tone of voice with me." The saddest part? He was fundamentally losing a psychological battle against a barcode scanner. 24. The holiday gift wrap station at a department store is a magical convenience, but it is absolutely not a remote IT support desk for neighborhood cheapskates. A frantic woman stormed into a mall clutching a blurry printed photo of a filthy dented microwave she had just purchased at a local yard sale. She demanded the elegant employees wrap exactly this. When gently reminded that the premium wrapping service was strictly for items actually bought inside the building, she pivoted to sheer madness. She demanded they FaceTime her living room iPad and virtually wrap the appliance over the internet. Apparently, the spirit of Christmas now requires a strong broadband connection. 25. Some juvenile pranks are loud, destructive, and obnoxious, but others rely on a chilling, totally silent form of psychological warfare. A man was permanently banned from his local supermarket for running a bizarre, stealthy campaign of pure carbohydrate confusion. For over an hour, he quietly stalked innocent shoppers through the crowded aisles, waiting patiently for them to turn their backs. He would then gently place a single, unwashed raw potato directly into their carts. He never giggled, he never filmed it for social media, and he never said a single word. The utter silence of his starchy terrorism made the whole experience deeply unsettling for everyone involved. 26. Brand loyalty is fiercely competitive in the greasy fast food industry, but aggressively confusing your corporate beefs will get you kicked to the curb in record time. A highly agitated man stormed up to a burger joint register and violently slammed down a half-eaten, completely crushed sandwich wrapper from a totally different chain. He started screaming that his meal tasted like garbage and completely lacked the signature flame-broiled flavor. When the stunned manager explained that he was currently standing inside the wrong restaurant franchise entirely, the guy doubled down. He demanded they issue a cash refund anyway, out of deep, industry-wide professional courtesy to their bitter corporate rival. 27. Classical string instruments demand immense respect and years of dedicated quiet practice, not a bootleg heavy metal tribute concert. A guy was swiftly ejected from an upscale music store after he wandered into the acoustic room and grabbed a magnificent imported wooden cello. Instead of sitting down on a stool, he violently slung the massive instrument over his shoulder and started aggressively shredding it like an electric guitar. He was jumping off heavy amplifiers, doing dramatic high kicks, and screaming wet guitar noises with his mouth until a terrified employee tackled him to save the $7,000 masterpiece from his tragic, completely unplugged solo. 28. Industrial cleaning equipment is surprisingly powerful, which naturally makes it incredibly tempting for absolute idiots harboring a massive death wish. An aspiring extreme sports athlete was permanently banned from a retail store after attempting to hijack a huge motorized floor polishing machine. He jumped right onto the spinning mechanical buffer, desperately trying to ride it down the main aisle like a high-speed soapy hoverboard. His majestic joyride lasted exactly 8 glorious feet before the brutal physics of centrifugal force fully took over. He, the heavy machinery, and an end-cap display featuring 500 bags of tortilla chips instantly merged into one tragic, extremely waxy, and very crunchy disaster. 29. The modern wellness industry is booming, but some highly health-conscious individuals have a very loose, incredibly reckless definition of nutritional supplements. A hyperactive guy burst through the glass doors of a vitamin shop and immediately demanded directions to the vitamin W aisle. When the confused staff asked for clarification, he read off a crumpled piece of paper. Whiskey, wine, or whatever works. The employees slowly explained that they sell fish oil and calcium tablets, not hard liquor. He fiercely pointed at a row of pre-workout protein shots, screaming that those were just drinks with benefits. He stormed out into the daylight, loudly vowing to hydrate the old-fashioned way. 30. The ancient barter system worked incredibly well during the Middle Ages, but modern pizza delivery franchises are strictly interested in cold hard fiat currency. One absolute master negotiator walked into a lobby and confidently attempted to buy a large, extra pepperoni pizza using a slightly bald, incredibly dirty car tire he had just rolled in from his trunk. He slammed the heavy rubber onto the counter, passionately arguing that the tire held a verified street value of at least $40, making it an incredible financial victory for the restaurant. He was genuinely heartbroken when the manager aggressively refused to accept Firestone radials as payment for garlic bread. 31. Finding the perfect sleeping arrangement for a beloved pet is crucial, but physically testing the merchandise yourself is a fast track to a trespassing charge. A grown man was permanently banned from a national pet supply chain after employees found him curled up sound asleep inside an extra-large, heavy-duty steel dog crate. He had actually managed to lock the latch from the inside. When the bewildered manager finally woke him up, the guy furiously argued that he was simply testing the structural integrity and ambient airflow before trusting his golden retriever with it. Security totally disagreed with his scientific method. 32. Trying out a product before you buy it is a solid consumer strategy, but testing heavy kitchen appliances inside the actual store is an immediate, horrific health code violation. A man dragged his own personal leaky grocery bag into the small appliance aisle to properly evaluate a high-end mechanical blender. He plugged the display model into a wall socket and immediately dumped in raw tilapia, a handful of unwashed kale, and an entire can of warm energy drink. He told the screaming retail employees he had to make sure the blades could handle his signature morning power smoothie. The resulting toxic vapor completely cleared out the surrounding 3 aisles. 33. Furniture stores go to great lengths to stage their showrooms perfectly, but you have to be deeply disconnected from reality to mistake a hollow plastic box for high-end electronics. A furious woman caused a massive scene at an upscale interior design outlet when she aggressively demanded a heavy discount on a $4,000 entertainment center. Her reasoning: she loudly complained that the flat-screen television sitting on top of it was completely broken, only showed a static piece of cardboard, and lacked a basic power cord. Staff had to politely explain what a decorative prop was to a screaming adult. 34. The modern labor movement is gaining serious traction across the country, but applying historical organizing tactics to inanimate fiberglass objects is a deeply concerning cry for psychiatric help. A highly agitated man wearing a heavy trench coat was permanently banned from a major clothing retailer for attempting to legally unionize the store's mannequins. He spent an hour walking around the men's department, aggressively slipping tiny, handwritten workers' rights pamphlets into their stiff plastic pockets. When confronted by management, he started screaming that forcing them to stand perfectly still under hot fluorescent lights without a single water break was a gross human rights violation. 35. Navigating a crowded department store on a busy weekend is already a total nightmare, but adding rogue logistics convoys to the mix is an act of pure evil. An entire extended family was banned from a store after attempting to completely revolutionize bulk shopping transport. They used heavy-duty industrial bungee cords to link 6 massive metal shopping carts together, creating a terrifying, completely unstoppable mechanical centipede. The father proudly dragged this massive metal snake through the narrow aisles, causing a brutal traffic jam and utterly destroying a highly precarious end cap of syrupy canned peaches when the tail end of his rig drifted way too hard around the corner. 36. Buying a new mattress is a massive financial commitment, But aggressive, high-altitude impact testing is generally not covered under the manufacturer's warranty. A middle-aged guy completely lost his mind in a sleep specialty store after a salesman politely asked him to stop jumping on a luxury memory foam display model. The man aggressively argued that human bodies are naturally aerodynamic during deep REM sleep, and the only verified scientific way to test a heavy-duty box spring is by executing a top-rope professional wrestling elbow drop. The manager decided to let the local police handle his unique physics experiment. 37. Buying a brand new mattress is a huge financial commitment, but staging a full-blown domestic squatting scenario inside a retail shop is definitely highly illegal. An entire family of 4 was forcefully evicted from a massive furniture showroom after they casually strolled in wearing matching flannel pajamas and dragging heavy roller suitcases. They completely bypassed the confused sales team, climbed directly into a fully decorated display bedroom, and pulled the premium feather duvet right over themselves. When security arrived to shut down the bizarre slumber party, the dad fiercely argued that they had a fundamental consumer right to test the immersive overnight experience before dropping $3 grand. 38. Remote work has completely changed cafe culture forever, but operating an unlicensed, highly toxic chemical plant next to the pastry display case is where modern society firmly draws the line. A customer was booted from a local coffee shop after transforming a small corner table into a fully operational mobile nail salon. She rapidly unpacked a massive ultraviolet curing lamp, heavy-duty grinding tools, and industrial-sized jugs of pure liquid acetone and acrylic powders. The overwhelming, highly flammable chemical fumes quickly overpowered the delicate, overpriced aroma of roasted espresso beans, leaving half the morning commuters desperately gasping for fresh air while waiting for their iced lattes. 39. Professional car mechanics are basically blue-collar miracle workers, but their extensive automotive expertise simply does not translate to cheap, squeaky office furniture. A guy caused a complete halt in production at a quick-service oil garage when he physically rolled his broken, heavily damaged fake leather desk chair straight into the dangerous service bay. He stared down the head mechanic and aggressively demanded a full wheel rotation and an absolute laser alignment on the tiny plastic casters. A massive crew of deeply bewildered men covered in motor oil had to patiently explain that their heavy-duty hydraulic lifts were designed for massive pickup trucks, not his wobbly ergonomic nightmare. 40. Commercial electricity isn't free, but some incredibly thrifty individuals firmly believe large retail chains should act as public utility providers for the entire community. A man was aggressively ejected from a massive electronics store parking lot for executing a deeply shameless theft of municipal power. He rapidly unspooled a bright orange, 200-foot construction extension cord, plugged it into an exterior outlet on the side of the building, and dragged it all the way across the asphalt to his rusted sedan. He was casually powering a massive, roaring industrial shop vacuum to detail his floor mats, completely baffled as to why the store manager aggressively objected to funding his auto detailing business. 41. Deep loneliness makes people do incredibly crazy things, but seeking romance in the women's apparel section is usually considered a massive, highly visible red flag. A lonely gentleman was politely but firmly escorted out of a department store after attempting to initiate a highly intimate, romantic slow dance with a rigid fiberglass female mannequin. Horrified shoppers were absolutely paralyzed as they watched him gently holding its stiff plastic hands, slowly swaying to the royalty-free mall music and reportedly whispering sweet nothings right into its cold, missing ear. Heavy security finally had to step in and forcefully break up the incredibly tragic, deeply one-sided synthetic love affair. 42. Impersonating a minimum wage retail worker sounds like the absolute most boring crime imaginable, but in the hands of a chaotic prankster, it quickly becomes a weapon of mass destruction. A guy was thrown out of an electronics superstore after throwing on a generic blue polo shirt and confidently infiltrating the massive sales floor as a fake technical expert. Management only caught him because he was currently assisting a sweet elderly couple in the highly expensive computer aisle. His expert technical advice? He was deeply assuring them that the absolute best way to remove tiny smudges from a brand new laptop screen was by scrubbing it furiously with coarse steel wool and industrial bleach. 43. Mall kiosks are basically tiny glass boxes of desperation, but they are absolutely not equipped to handle heavy household sanitation projects. A frantic woman marched up to a microscopic phone repair stand, clutching a totally crusted over, deeply moldy detergent drawer ripped straight out of her massive washing machine. She slammed it down and aggressively demanded a high-powered ultrasonic deep clean, confidently stating that since they fix tiny microchips, they can easily blast away hardened soap scum. When the terrified teenager explained he only replaces cracked mobile screens, she started screaming about his blatant anti-appliance bias, demanding he at least scrape the plastic using one of his tiny metal screwdrivers. 44. Outdoor sporting goods stores pride themselves on rugged authenticity, but you are definitely not legally allowed to harvest your dinner directly from their interior retail decor. A heavily bearded outdoorsman was permanently banned from a retail hunting lodge for attempting to actively poach wildlife from the giant indoor display aquarium. This absolute legend actually smuggled in his own collapsible fiberglass fishing rod, baited a real sharp hook, and was silently standing over the wooden rail waiting patiently for a massive strike. Heavy security guards had to forcefully inform him that the 80-pound catfish swimming near the fake waterfall were strictly for decorative ambiance, not a Friday night fish fry. 45. Giant hardware stores are full of incredibly dangerous heavy machinery, which naturally makes them the perfect backdrop for incredibly cheesy, highly illegal cinema reenactments. A young couple was aggressively booted from a massive home improvement warehouse for hijacking one of those massive 10-foot-tall rolling steel staircases. They didn't need any expensive lumber. They wheeled the giant ladder right into the middle of the main aisle to conduct a deeply dramatic, highly romantic photo shoot based on the tragic movie Titanic. The guy was literally standing on the perilous top safety rail, spreading his arms wide and screaming that he was the king of the world to an audience of very confused plumbers. 46. Massive big-box retailers boast gigantic inventories that carry almost everything, but their agricultural supply chain apparently has some glaring, deeply magical blind spots. Someone was heavily escorted off the retail premises after marching right up to the customer service desk and violently slapping down a highly detailed, 2-page handwritten grievance. His furious, completely serious complaint focused entirely on the store's absolutely abysmal selection of live mythical creatures. He stared the exhausted manager right in the eyes, genuinely furious that they did not stock living, breathing unicorns in the outdoor garden center, and aggressively demanded to see the freight manifest to know exactly when the next enchanted shipment would finally arrive. 47. The modern financial sector is built entirely on institutional trust, cold hard data, and absolutely no tolerance for amateur sketchbook currency. A guy walked into a high-security bank lobby and confidently slid a crumpled piece of loose-leaf notebook paper right under the thick bulletproof glass. Upon closer inspection, the deeply confused teller realized it was a highly detailed, completely hand-drawn portrait of a $1 million bill heavily shaded with a number 2 pencil. The man confidently argued that the crude doodle was a highly legal, visual representation of his massive liquid assets. He was genuinely, utterly shocked when the federal banking system completely refused to digitize his terrible artwork. 48. Car part stores gladly sell you the tools to succeed, but they are absolutely not a free, highly skilled pit crew for your terrible vehicular life choices. A deeply entitled customer was permanently banned from an automotive shop for aggressively demanding the underpaid cashiers personally install a gigantic, absurdly illegal racing spoiler onto his beat-up old sedan. To make matters infinitely worse, he drove the actual leaking vehicle straight through the automatic sliding glass doors and parked it in the exact center aisle. He started ripping open brand new, expensive socket sets, aggressively shouting that since they sold him the fiberglass wing, they were legally bound by blood to finish the installation right there. 49. High-end cosmetic stores are highly curated, luxurious environments, not a lawless playground for rogue, deeply aggressive freelance makeup artists. A woman was rapidly chased out of a beauty boutique for launching a totally unsolicited, high-speed makeup assault on a completely random, terrified shopper. She delusionally appointed herself the senior beauty consultant for the afternoon and physically cornered an innocent stranger right near the expensive concealers. Frantic employees caught her forcefully blending dark liquid foundation directly onto the crying victim's face using her bare, completely unwashed hands. She violently fought store security the entire way out, loudly screaming that she was just trying to fix their incredibly tragic bone structure. 50. Returning unwanted retail merchandise is an incredibly boring chore, but apparently, it just needs a little bit of theatrical pageantry to really shine. Two incredibly bored 20-somethings decided to organize a massive, totally unauthorized returns parade right in the exact middle of a superstore. They lined up 5 heavy carts full of random garbage, linked them together, and began snake-weaving through the terrified crowds while violently blasting a cheap plastic toy trumpet. They loudly saluted enraged store managers as the grand marshals of restocking. The chaotic, joyful festival abruptly ended when their heavy convoy drifted too hard and absolutely obliterated a massive, unstable tower of boxed blenders, providing a very expensive final drum roll. You've seen the worst of the worst, but I know you've got your own horror stories. What is the most psychotic, unhinged customer behavior you have ever seen with your own eyes? Name the store and the crime in the comments right now. Let's see who has the craziest story. If this video made you question human intelligence, smash the like button and subscribe for more.